Obina, are you sleeping? Wake up and see what your brothers are doing. They said I'm the murderer. Your mother told me to leave my children and go back to my father's empty-handed. She said I am just a tenant here. Obina, if you are really a man, don't let me suffer like this. If you can.
Before her husband died, life was like a beautiful dream. Nneka was 28 years old, a woman whose beauty made people stop and look twice. She and Obinna lived in a big, modern house in the city. They had 3 beautiful children. Chidi was 8, Somi was 7, and Toby was 6. Their home was always full of laughter. Obinna was a good man who loved his wife. He provided everything. Nneka didn't have to struggle for anything. She spent her days taking care of the children and supporting Obinna's dreams. On the morning of the accident, the sun was bright. Obinna was dressed in a sharp blue suit, eating breakfast while the children played around his legs. Nneka, my love, Obinna said, smiling as he took a sip of tea. I have a big meeting today. If it goes well, we are taking the kids on a vacation. Just come back safely, Nneka replied as she straightened his tie. That is the only vacation I need. Obinna kissed her forehead, promised to be back by 5 p.m. and drove out of the gate. A few hours later, Nneka was in the living room helping Somi with her homework. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number.
Hello, is this the wife of Mr. Obinna?
Yes, this is his wife. Who is this?
Madam, there has been an accident. A very bad one on the expressway. You need to come to the general hospital now.
Nneka's hand went weak. The phone slid from her fingers and hit the floor with a loud crack. She didn't scream yet. She just sat there staring at the wall while her children called her name.
Mommy, look! Mommy, please! Mommy, wake up!
Then, a long sharp wail broke from her throat. She collapsed on the rug, pulling at her hair. Obinna was gone. In the village, the atmosphere was not one of comfort. It was one of judgment. Nneka was forced to sit on a low wooden stool in the middle of the compound. 3 elderly women surrounded her. One of them held a sharp, cold razor blade. Keep your head still, Nneka, the first woman said roughly. This is the tradition. A wife must be clean so her husband's soul can pass. As the long, beautiful hair Nneka had taken care of fell into the dirt, the women whispered. Look at how she is crying, the second woman whispered to the third. People who cry this loud are usually the ones who know how their husbands died. Nneka looked up, her eyes red. What are you saying? I loved him. He was my life. The women just ignored her and kept scraping the razor against her scalp until her head was smooth and bare. The day of the burial was the most dramatic. The whole family gathered around the deep hole in the ground. When it was time to throw the sand, Mama Chioma, the mother-in-law, stepped forward. She took a handful of red earth and threw it violently into the grave. Obinna, my son, she screamed, if any man or woman had a hand in your death, may they never know peace. May the earth reject them. If it is the person you ate with who poisoned your life, let the ground judge them. She looked directly at Nneka when she said it. The brothers, Jude and Chuka, stood behind her, nodding their heads and looking at Nneka with hatred. Nneka stumbled forward, her legs weak. She took her own sand. Obinna, you promised the children the park. You promised me forever. Sleep well. I will fight for our children. 2 weeks after the burial, Nneka and the children finally returned to their house in the city. When she turned the key in the lock and pushed the door open, the silence that met them was like a heavy blanket. The house still smelled of Obinna's favorite cologne, and his spare shoes were still neatly tucked under the console table in the hallway. Chidi, Somi, and Toby walked in slowly, their small footsteps echoing on the tiled floor. Usually, their father would be shouting from the parlor, "Who is that coming to disturb my peace?" Followed by a loud laugh and big hugs. Now, there was nothing but the hum of the refrigerator. Nneka stood in the center of the living room, her white morning clothes looking ghostly in the dim light. She looked at the empty recliner, where Obinna used to sit to watch the news. The pain hit her fresh, as if the accident had happened only an hour ago. She sat on the edge of the sofa and pulled her children close, all of them crying quietly in the stillness of a home that had lost its heartbeat. 1 week after their return, just as Neka was beginning to figure out how to navigate the house without her husband, a loud, aggressive knock came at the front door. Neka wiped her hands on her wrapper and went to the door. When she opened it, her heart dropped. Standing there was Mama Chioma, flanked by Jude and Chuka. They weren't holding small bags for a visit. They had large, heavy suitcases and sacks of foodstuffs at their feet. Mama, Brother Jude? Neka asked, her voice filled with confusion. I didn't know you were coming to the city today. Without waiting for an invitation, Jude picked up 2 of the bags and pushed past Neka, his shoulder hitting hers. Chuka followed, dragging a trunk that scratched the floor. Mama Chioma walked in last, her face stern as she looked around the parlor. A house where a man has died should not be left for only a woman to manage. Mama Chioma said, dropping her handbag on the dining table. We have come to stay. We cannot leave our son's properties to be wasted. But there is no space, Neka stammered, watching Jude drop his bags in the guest room. And we are still mourning. I need time with my children. Jude walked back into the parlor, tapping a bunch of keys he had taken from the hallway bowl. Mourning is over, Neka. From today, we are the ones in charge here. We are here to make sure our brother's sweat does not disappear into thin air. You should be happy your family is here to help you. Neka looked at the suitcases lined up in her hallway and realized the peace she had fought for was gone. The people who should have comforted her had arrived to take over. The first morning in the house, Neka woke up early to prepare breakfast for Chidi, Somi, and Toby. She was still wearing her white morning lace, her bald head covered with a simple white scarf. As she reached for the bag of rice in the store, a hand grabbed the serving spoon from her. Mama Chioma stood there, her face set like stone. Leave that rice alone, Neka. From today, I am the one to cook in this house. Neka looked at her mother-in-law, confused. Mama, why? I have been cooking for my husband and my children for 10 years. I know what they like. Mama Chioma stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. And where is your husband today? He is in the ground. I cannot let you feed my grandchildren, the same thing you gave my son. My heart tells me the truth, even if the doctors are paid to lie about accidents. Neka felt a cold shiver. Mama, are you saying I poisoned Obinna? You saw the report. It was a brake failure. Go and sit in the parlor and wait for your portion like a stranger, Mama Chioma said, turning her back to light the stove. A woman with blood on her hands does not touch the food of the innocent. Neka walked into the living room, her heart pounding. She saw Uncle Jude sitting in Obinna's favorite recliner. He was tossing a bunch of keys in his hand, the keys to the SUV and the smaller family car. Brother Jude, please, Neka said, her voice trembling. I need the keys. I have to take the children to school. They have missed too many classes because of the burial. Jude didn't even look up. The cars are not moving. They are part of the estate of my late brother. A woman who is being accused of such things should stay indoors, where people cannot see her shame. But the children have exams, Neka cried out. You cannot punish them for things you are making up in your head. Jude stood up slowly, towering over her. If you step outside that gate, I will shout for the whole estate to hear what you did to my brother. Give me the spare keys too, or I will throw your boxes onto the street before sunset. You are a guest here now, Neka. Remember that. While Neka was being humiliated in the parlor, Uncle Chuka was in the children's bedroom. He sat on the edge of 8-year-old Chidi's bed, his voice low and friendly, but his eyes were sharp. Chidi, tell your uncle the truth, Chuka said, leaning in. That morning before Daddy left, did Mommy give him any special drink? Did you see her put anything inside his cup when he wasn't looking? Chidi looked at his younger sister, Somi, who was already starting to cry. No, Uncle, we all ate bread and tea together. Mommy was crying when Daddy left because she didn't want him to go. Chuka sighed and stood up, looking at them with fake pity. You children are too young to know the charms your mother uses. Don't worry, your grandmother and I are here to protect you from her. She is a dangerous woman. Toby, the 6-year-old, crawled into Chidi's arms, sobbing quietly. They didn't understand why their favorite uncles were suddenly talking about their mother as if she were a monster. That night, Neka couldn't sleep. She walked out of her room to get a glass of water, but she stopped when she heard voices coming from the parlor. The lights were dimmed. Jude, Chuka, and Mama Chioma were sitting in a circle, whispering. "This house is worth at least 80 million naira," Jude whispered loudly. "If we sell the cars and the furniture, we can split the money. I need to finish my house in the village." "We shouldn't sell the house yet," Chuka argued. "I want my first son to move into the guest room next month. He needs a place near his new job in the city. It's better he stays here for free." Mama Chioma nodded her head firmly. "The most important thing is to make Neka tired. If we make life miserable for her, she will run back to her father's house. That is when we change the locks and take the children. They are our blood. She's just a woman we married." Neka leaned against the wall in the dark hallway, clutching her chest. They were talking about her life as if she were already dead.